Welcome back to another episode of the Unblock Your BS podcast. Now, fun fact, I recently had a video go almost to 1 million views. It's at 970,000 at the time of this recording, all about a failed connection with someone on a plane. You can go look up TikTok and see what I'm talking about. A lot of y'all saw it because you messaged me about it. But it kind of highlighted this concept of sharing in real time what nervous system regulation looks like in the real world, as in when you're out in the dating world, for example, as I am. And the ups and downs that come with that, whether you're getting stood up, ghosted, or you're stuck on a plane with somebody that you think might be a good connection and ultimately realize maybe not so much, he's just drunk. Modern dating can feel like a game that's rigged. Apps, labels, ghosting, getting stood up, a lot of who texts first, anxiety, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, fearful avoidant attachment, narcissists, you name it. It's a bit of a mess, right? And that's why today I brought on two men who are playing to win with integrity. Chris Bates is a men's dating coach and former lead health coach at Heart and Soil. He's the author of The Dating Edge 13 Principles to Stop Wasting Time and Find the Right Woman, and also co host with his buddy Joel of a show on YouTube called Wife or Bust, also a podcast. It's a real time series of coaching men and specifically Joel through modern dating, as well as Joel, the guinea pig. He's a seasoned mindset, life, and business coach and the brain behind Wife or Bust. He's documenting his own journey in search of a partner with radical transparency, meaning that he is actively dating in with the intention of finding a wife and documenting it and being coached by Chris, but also sharing his experiences of what that's like and how he regulates in real time, much like I saw was very popular on TikTok with me sharing vulnerably the experiences I had and how I processed through it. So in today's conversation, we turn dating into a springboard for self mastery. We unpack how small t childhood trauma or wounds replay in adult relationships, why feedback from other men specifically, so if you're a man out in the dating world or in relationships and struggling, why getting feedback from other men lands differently than when a partner or a date or a spouse gives you feedback. And Joel's rule of thumb of questions pull and statements pressed. We get practical about the apps, Hinge versus Bumble, building an authentic profile that acts almost like this landing page as if you are trying to quote unquote sell yourself, but go with the analogy. It actually fits really well in this episode. And why never ghosting and always closing the loop makes you proud of every interaction that you have and how you're representing yourself out in the dating world and out in your relationships with others. We also tackled the overuse of labels like narcissist and Chris's foundation metaphor for men that are building before inviting someone in. So, if you're re entering the dating world after a divorce or a long term relationship, or you've just had a run of bad luck and you're tired of wasting time, this episode is a compass of clarity, courage, and character. So, you don't just have to find the right woman, you become the man who can keep her. Because I don't know. Life doesn't end when you get into a relationship. That's when it's just beginning. So all of the tools and skills and whatever you do during dating, you better be able to uphold it in a relationship as well. So I loved this conversation. For sure, I will have them back on because we had so much more we could unpack. And I really loved how they approached dating and relationships and the integrity that they brought into this conversation. So let's get into today's episode with Chris and Joel. Well, Chris and Joel, welcome to the Unblock Your BS podcast. It has been long awaited to have you guys on here. So welcome.
Thank you.
Right. Why don't you guys, Chris, we'll start with you, kind of introduce yourself, who you are, how you got to be here, and then Joel will move over to you.
I'm Chris Bates. I am a dating coach, but I wasn't always a dating coach. I started working with men through a company called Heart and Soil and a guy named Paul Saladino, very big in the health world. And then I broke away to start my own business. And I found out that, oh, most men want to be healthy to either save a relationship they're already in or find the right woman and get the right caliber of woman in their life and have a successful dating experience there. So that's kind of how I got here. My book is actually about to come out officially next week. It's called The Dating Edge. It's 13 principles to stop wasting time and find the right woman. And yeah, the whole wife or bust idea, which we'll get into, is Joel's idea. I got to give him credit. So that's how we kind of became a duo. And yeah, excited to talk more about that later.
Well, tell us about that, Joel.
The idea of doing wife or bust.
Well, who you are and why we're doing Wiper Butt.
Yeah, let's do it. My name is Joel Cochran, and I am a mindset coach, life coach, and I moved here to Austin just over a year ago. And one of the reasons I moved to Austin is I had a couple different friends here. I had visited a couple different times, and really there was beautiful people all over the place here. Not just women, but like really good looking men, and everybody's fit, and people are progressive in their mindset and their health. And I went, man, if there is going to be a place that I'm going to find my partner, Austin's a great place to land. And I got the opportunity to be able to meet Chris through a mutual friend, and him and I hit it off very quickly. And I believe it was actually pretty early on that I actually said to Chris, I'm like, I feel like we should do a podcast together. And Chris is like, I got a lot of things going on. I don't know. And so I just knew that I needed to hit him with a different angle. And knowing that he was working on his book and knowing that I was searching for a wife, I went, hey, let's convene these two worlds together, and this is going to help promote your business, and this is also going to put me on a larger platform. And it truly is a numbers game, is in being able to get yourself out there, and just, are you willing to be able to put yourself out there to find what you want? And that was the bold step that I was taking forward, was going, okay, well, if this is what I want to be able to get that, I need to put myself out there. And what better way than to be on the World Wide Web, where not only all of your friends, all of your family members, but also your mom and dad get to watch every episode. So
Did you consider that before you started hitting record?
100%. The very first episode was talking about my mom and dad. And yeah, that was a tough listen for my mom, because part of my journey is healing my relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
Knowing that when I came out of a relationship in which I thought I was going to marry this woman, I realized, oh, there was a lot of wounds that I hadn't healed yet. And as a life coach and a mindset coach, this is stuff that I help people walk through trauma all the time. I had to go live and go through that. And it took 4 to 5 years to heal this relationship with my mom, but it was such a big piece and part of where I am right now, and it truly is a beautiful story. Yet it can feel really exposing, for my mom and for my dad, because I'm telling the whole world, like, "Hey, I had a really tough time with my mom. I had a really tough time with my dad." Yet by putting in effort, we've healed a lot of this. And now it's opened me up to be able to go, wow, I feel so much, I see my relationship with my mother, a whole completely different world. I told people, I was like, I had to court my mom before I was necessarily going to court my wife, because I need to heal this thing over here. Because if not, I was just going to follow the trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot of the work that I do is around the nervous system and the inner child. So it is fascinating when you don't recognize that your nervous system is actually trying to reenact childhood stuff and the relationship with your parents. So when I start to work with men specifically, and you guys can kind of speak to this more from a personal standpoint, but they have a hard time connecting, like, oh, the partner that I had mimics the relationship I had or the desire that I had as a child. So if I have a wound of rejection or abandonment because dad didn't show up to my baseball game as a kid. We can call that little t trauma. So it's not this big, I had a massive trauma as a kid. It's these little subtle nuances that the nervous system then goes, this is my role in my family. This is how I survive and be accepted by my tribe. I fight, I fawn, I freeze, I flight. And then we go and reenact that in our adult relationships. And then we wonder why 10 years into a relationship, we can't stand this person or we're super reactive or it's just we don't have that loving feeling anymore. So that's been fascinating for me to understand just from a human standpoint of how our nervous systems work. And then most men, and again, I'm going to generalize a lot here, don't connect those dots because they don't have the conversations like this with other men of like, oh, yeah, your childhood trauma. Let's talk about that. Whereas women may be a little bit more open or open to going to therapy to discover that. So, Chris, as a coach, how do you help men to identify those patterns that may not be serving them when they're dating, getting into relationships, or what did that look like for you?
It's honestly a very organic piggyback off of what you were just talking about. I do work with men one on one, but I find the best way to start opening up men, because a lot of time they want to think that they popped out of the womb knowing how to court women. And it's what other skill in life do you have this innate proficiency? Everything requires repetition, feedback, openness, research, analysis, reflection, all these things. And I find the best way to do that is men's groups. And so the big call to action in my book is actually for men to, whether it's in their own lives own lives, excuse me, or a community that I have is getting kind of like small group coaching atmospheres, because the way that you best identify your weak spots is by really fostering relationships with men you respect who are willing to challenge you appropriately. And so I think a lot of times men don't intend to neglect maybe what happened when they were younger or patterns, but it helps expedite the process to hear it from some guy that you respect it, and you're like, oh wow, he might be onto something, and I'm not sure I would have thought of this had this specific person that I have this relationship brotherhood with didn't have the cojones to tactfully call me out. And so I think that's one of the biggest ways that I help men is just by facilitating.
So why do you think, because I get this a lot too, especially on the women's side, why do you think that when a partner gives you that feedback, it's taken as an attack or it's not as received as well, as opposed to a friend who's maybe not emotionally involved, that there may be more logic at play?
That's an excellent question. I don't know if I have an answer, but if I were to wager on one, I think it's like third party verification. Like it's really good, just like with his business or anything else, to have somebody else comb through, like a non-biased party. Like we see this with mediation, counseling, business, all kinds of things. And I think that's kind of what it is. And also, as men, we're really hard on ourselves, and I think if you're in a relationship or you're in the dating world and you feel like you're fighting an uphill battle, you're looking for an ally to give you constructive feedback. You're not looking for more pushback, more battle, more opponents, more exhaustion from those kinds of avenues.
Well, also maybe the meaning that you take for like your partner may seem as a criticism, whereas a friend, you don't take that personal meaning that it means anything about you. It's just more, again, like that constructive feedback rather than this means something about you as a partner.
Yeah, that's a great clarification because it's perception about how it's incoming. It's not necessarily that it is a battle. It's just maybe perceived that way.
Yeah. Joel, any insight on that, Mr. Mindset Coach?
Yeah. I mean, seeing this quite often, we have a lot of people who join our program who are married, and exactly what you're talking about. When you talk about 10 years, you talk about a lot of small T's, a lot of different traumas, and we tend to, if those traumas aren't addressed in from childhood, we're gonna try to heal those wounds with somebody who is a reflection of that. So I'm gonna find my mother, but I'm gonna say, oh, but this is a completely different woman. But what we're going to find is there's going to be some similarities in what my mom's characteristics are and what my wife's characteristics are. And if we don't heal those wounds, like I did with my mom, realize like, oh, this actually doesn't have to do with her. This has to do with me. And I need to heal this wound. So when I heal this wound, now I have a healing space for my mother. Now I have a healing space where my mother. My mother can heal. Same kind of situation that we slide over when it comes into marriages or long term relationships, is that these small little T's are actually uh, uh, stacking on top of those small traumas from the past, and they start becoming big traumas. So then all of a sudden, when this is an example of a couple that I work with, when the man is driving to a certain location and he put in the wrong GPS coordinates, that she pulled up the GPS coordinates thinking that she's worthy help. He took it as, oh, you don't respect me. And it became this like blow up moment where she's like on the phone with me and he's like emailing. And this huge moment of like, oh, you just put in the wrong coordinates. I'm here to help. But if the trauma is that I wasn't enough because my father wasn't around and because my mother never listened to me, when my wife comes in and says, hey, I want to help, right? There's this huge explosion. And for her on the opposite side, her dad was always was very reactive. So there were always eggshells. So they married each other's traumas. And until they recognize it, and that's the stuff that we're working through, like, hey, you see that this is what's happening. Hey, you see this is what's happening. Until we start recognizing that, starting healing that, those same things are going to start overlapping time and time again. And so this it's a big picture kind of thing that I think a lot of the times we just acute, well, hey, when I'm making decisions in the car, you just need to respect me. It's so much bigger than that.
Yeah. It's the root cause of the disconnect. And that's where it's so funny to me when, because I work with couples too, and I'll get the men's side of things of like, she just doesn't respect me, or a lot of times it's a lack of sex in the relationship. I'm like, that is the symptom. It is not the problem to solve for. And men want to be these fixers. They want to go solve a problem. But if you're not actually solving the correct problem because you don't understand her emotional world, much less yours, then we're trying to solve emotion with logic. And that very rarely works. I don't know if a man has tried that. Like when you tell your partner just to calm down and it actually ramps her up. Weird. I don't know how that happened. Um, this just randomly came up and I want to get your guys' take on it because it's a very hot buzzword in social media is narcissist. It is like nails on a chalkboard to me because everybody wants to think that they're a clinical diagnostician. They can diagnose narcissism from a mile away. Um, what is your take on people who want to say that their partner is or they have a tendency towards narcissists? And how do you put them back in a place of power rather than trying to live in a world of fear of trying to see if everybody has these narcissistic traits?
You want to go first, Sean?
Um, yeah, I've worked with um people who have been in narcissistic relationships, and narcissism from, I can't clinically diagnose any of these things, right? Nor do I choose, because I what I see this is with a lot of people using narcissism as their way to be able to um try to honor their victim mentality. You know, it's like, no, somebody just made a decision for themselves and you didn't like that decision. You don't know how to process that because no one taught you how to be able to process that. And so therefore now you're just going to call them a narcissist. And it's like, well, no, because the narcissism or narcissistic personalities that I've dealt with, they don't like, they don't even, it doesn't even click. Like there's not even a click of like, I'm doing anything wrong. Like there won't be a moment where they're like, I kind of feel bad about that, or maybe I should have thought about it differently. They're just like, no, I'm right all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. They're always right all the time. And it's understanding the difference between the two, I think is really, really important. But again, Chris, maybe you can speak on this a little bit more. I think it's people just not being able to like, I'm either in the wrong relationship because I'm trying to hunt down or heal something from the past through this person instead of just leaving the relationship, you know, and I want to point the finger at them like, oh, you're narcissistic. And that gives me a reason to make you the bad guy and for me to be the good guy or to be able to leave this relationship.
Yeah, it's a lot of labels.
It is a lot of labels, and I do think Joel's onto something. I kind of think about it like people want to understand, and so therefore they use labels and they use concepts to make something that's infinitely complex, easy to digest, especially a relationship. It means so much to someone. So they're like, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be something I'm going to learn. I want to avoid this pain in the future, and that's where I think these labels get overused. And again, I'm not one to be able to properly diagnose it either. But if I were to use an analogy that I feel is accurate based off a lot of anecdata, it's that people blame global warming on cow farts. It's like, well, we used to have megafauna and there's already nitrogen. This is part of a natural cycle. You just want to be able to isolate something, whether that's from an understanding or a solution perspective. It's like, I don't think cow farts are going to do humanity in, especially because there's much less bovine on earth than there used to be. But the analogy, I guess, in this situation is like, there's a lot of complex variables, and I think the best way that anyone can understand it is like what Joel was saying, is an absence of the victim mentality and say, okay, let me assume that I had a part to play in this. I'm not going to play the blame game. I'm not going to blame them. I'm not going to blame me. Let's look at it as like this is a whole equation. Let me just see if I can isolate variables and learn from it and use it as a learning experience versus trying to pin it all on them, all on me, or all on, something else. And that's tough conceptually to swallow because you have to be at peace with the unknown and ambiguity. And nobody likes that. I don't like that. In fact, that's like, I hate that. But it also does give you a sense of peace because you're like, you know what, this is larger than me and this other person. Let me just see what I can use. Let me see if I can gather a nugget, a building block, and I know this will serve me later. And instead of having to solve this massive equation that's on this God tier and I'm a mere mortal. Let me just like extract one thing or a couple things and use it going forward. And so I guess going back to your original question, I believe that the terms gaslighting and narcissism are vastly overused, and I think part of it has to do with, um, you know, you talked about making blanket statements or generalizations. I think women are much more outspoken in general on social media than men. That's not always the case, but so then when they hear something and they're like, "Oh, I did go through something similar," and they label this term, I don't think that they're trying to overdiagnose. They've suffered emotionally and they're trying to make sense of it, just like men do in different ways. But I think that's kind of why this term has become so commonplace, like a very modern dating lexicon kind of thing.
Yeah, it creates this almost mob mentality. I was watching Love is Blind, and it fascinated me as you're getting kind of further on in the season just how much the women overtalk the men. And maybe I'm just more in tune with like men just because I coach them, but it's like, wait, he is in the middle of actually sharing something and you're jumping on and attacking, and then we're throwing these labels on. And he doesn't even get a chance to process because she's just rapid firing. And I think that's a common experience for men of I know for my ex-husband, he processed things a lot slower than I did. And I took that as either he's just not intelligent about this stuff or I needed to come in and save him from whatever conclusion he was going to make. He needed to have the right conclusion. He just needed more time to process. And it wasn't until hindsight that I recognized he has a slower pace of being able to digest information and not just run off at the mouth. You find that that's common for men, or was that just my situation? That women just use more words?
I think it depends on the man. I mean, I am verbose, if you can already tell, and and I love to process externally, but I might be atypical. At least I think that I am based off of, just like reflecting on my life. Joel would probably agree with that about me, but he also may be in the same boat. Yeah, I agree. Which is why we get along. Um, but I do think that typically men are more reluctant or hesitant to share things. And so if they start to and they feel like they're getting overrun, it makes total sense that they would retreat. If it's hard for them to do and they're not, and that's not their typical go to, when you're taking the courage to do something you don't normally do and you get slapped on the wrist, I mean, what's your response going to be? What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, there's a saying that we say in proclivity questions, pull statements press, and we tend to think fast or think fast, talk fast, and act slow. When really we need to be doing the opposite. We need to be thinking slow, talking slow, and then acting fast. And one of the practices that I encourage people to do is, and this is kind of um, these two concepts don't necessarily work together, but keep your mouth shut and ask more questions. And what I mean is like, no need to make statements. Like, just keep asking questions. And so when you're in any type of argument or you're having your emotions, of course, you want your emotions to be heard. And so you tend to speak more. Yet when you're encouraging connection, connection happens through questions. And being able to go, hey, let me just ask one more question. Okay. And then after that, let me just ask one more question. And then after that, let me ask just one more question. Because your story can change this fast when all of a sudden you find out one more piece of information, right? The guy that you've been and this happened to me in this last year. The guy that you've been talking to, he was talking to you, and then all of a sudden he stopped, and oh, he's just like all the other guys. He just ditched me, and then I come and I lash out at him like, "Oh, you say you're this, but you're just all this." And then I went, "My dad got in an accident. He was quadriplegic. I've been in the IC unit for the last 2 weeks." How fast does the reality change?
Yeah.
Very quickly. And that's an extreme version. Yet by being able to ask questions and continuing to ask questions and think of the best, not the worst case, what that does is put us in a space to be able to connect instead of press away.
Yeah, it's a beautiful analogy of also dating because when you're in the first early stages of dating, you're asking questions, but your brain is actually filling in the gaps by mainly positive. That you're almost fantasizing who this person is, especially if it's very text heavy. You don't have a lot of context of who this person is. So you start to get emotionally attached to this fantasy person. without more information. So continuing the question asking, this is where I feel like with, I'm just going to speak from the women perspective, but if we jump into getting physically connected with somebody before we have a lot of the concepts and the who that person is and how they handle life, we start getting chemically attached to them. Then we start getting more information that is different than the fantasy we made up. And now all of a sudden we have kind of these situationship where we're very vastly misaligned, but we're also like, well, but I don't want to go back to dating, or I don't want to go back to, I really like them in certain areas, but not all areas. So we self abandon just because we now are chemically attached. Um, Here's my question for you. How do you think dating apps has changed the game for dating? Because I know you guys are a little bit older like me, so you may remember times before dating apps. I was in a 10-year marriage, and so when I was back in the dating world back in 2007, like eHarmony was just coming online. We had MySpace, but you pick people up out in the real world. So coming back into the dating world after that marriage was interesting. So what's your take on how dating apps have either helped or hurt, or they're just a tool and here's how to use it?
That is that just like that's I I so I'm 34. And so the apps were when I was, I don't know, just after college, late college, they're becoming a thing. But I never used them until I had a 5-year marriage, got divorced, moved to Austin, never lived in a metropolitan area. So I had a very steep learning curve in terms of, residual stuff post divorce. That was just my stuff, and internal, I wouldn't even say insecurities, but like pain points and spots that needed reinforcing. And I just stumbled through the dating world. In fact, that's what the book is about. And I think the apps can be a great tool, but you need to be in a certain mindset and you need to be very intentional with how you use them. Otherwise, it can make dating terrible. And I think that's why we see a lot of cynicism, not just with apps, but with dating in general, is because people, and I did it too. So I would never fault someone because you don't always realize when you're ready or when you haven't used something, you don't know how to utilize it properly. But it's easy to have bad experiences on there because of the disconnect. I typically don't suggest that guys only do that. I say, hey, this is a tool to cast a wider net. And the way to win on the apps, differentiate yourself, is actually not changing who you are. People think like sales is about, how would you say, almost borderline manipulating someone into agreeing to a contract or a purchase or whatever. And you can see the parallels in dating there. But I think the reality is people are really good salesmen. They believe in what they're selling and they don't tailor it and they set expectations up front. And so I'm like, the dating app is a perfect way to do that. You don't need to get too in your head about it. Obviously, you can be tactical, but you don't need to change yourself. You just need to present more of you up front and let that be an organic filter to sort out the people who wouldn't be interested in you, that would be a waste of your time, and let it attract the people that you actually have a good first date experience with. And I think that's how you can do approaching in real life as well. That concept can be split and go in both areas, but it's just something really amazing when guys get, especially if they're cynical, is one of my favorite things, and they start to use the app differently, and they start to get a swell of women that they're actually excited to go on first dates with. The watching that click and seeing the gears shift in their head is one of my favorite things, especially apps are so unpopular right now. The pendulum swinging back to in-person approaching, and I think that's great for guys and for women. But it is a really good tool. But, if you're trying to build a house and you're using screwdrivers and nails and you're using, you know, um, drills on, or rather hammers on screws, then you're not going to have a fun time. Um, yeah, I'll stop there because as Joel knows, I could go for days on this.
Joel, what's your take on that since you're actively using the apps from my understanding? What's it been like as you start to document this journey and your processing of using the apps?
Yeah, it's so initially when I first got on the app, I got on the app I don't know, maybe 2.5 years ago when I was still living in Reno. And when I built it out, I kind of, threw it together and I really wasn't getting very good results. And eventually I was just like, hey, I'm just gonna pop off this thing. And when I got back with Chris and we started the show, I went, all right, I'm gonna pull up this old like profile here. We're gonna take a look at it. And Chris helped me tremendously in being able to go, well, is that your most authentic self? Is that really where you stand? Is that picture representing you? What type of picture should you have? Should you have videos? What should your prompts say? And going through this process, I probably spent 12 to 15 hours on the profile itself from building out because Chris ended up building out an entire ChatGPT like forum to fill out to be able to get the best possible answers of who you are. And so whether I was filling out the prompts or what best pictures and so on and so forth, and I really got into this facet and this mode of I built a lot of different business websites and I'm a salesman and I'm a business owner and I'm like, oh, this is my landing page.
Mhm.
And so there needs to be a story to this. And they need to understand clearly who I'm asking for because just like I tell any of my business clients, hey, you want when somebody comes to your website, you want them to raise their hand and say, that's me. And so I started building out this profile page that I want the woman that goes, ooh, that's exactly what I want. Not like, he seems cute or oh, that's a nice picture or, oh, that was a funny prompt. No, I want them to go, that's me. And I kid you not, I want to say at this point, Chris, how long have we been doing this?
Um, 6 months, maybe 5, 6 months.
Maybe 6 months. Um, I've I've gotten what I call inbounds, right? People liking my page,
Leads.
leads, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I want to say maybe 350, 400,
Wow.
um,
Which is a lot
which
for a dude.
is a lot for a
It's
dude.
early Saturday for me.
Exactly. And that's the thing Chris pointed out. Yet what I really attribute that to is that I came into my profile and I was very firm on the things that I believe in, and I put pictures in that represent me the most. And I know for sure it's driven people away, and I know for sure it's driven people towards me. And so it has been a beautiful experience for me of being able to go, oh, that's right. This is basically creating your own landing page for yourself. How are you representing yourself? And that helped me not only on that landing page spend 15 hours building out this landing page and just like Hinge, but I went, oh, that's also how you represent yourself outside as well. So be firm in who you are on both sides, ready for rejection. And I believe a lot of men, particularly men, some more than others, have such a big fear of rejection. And I'm like, no, you want to hear no in the dating game often because what you're doing is you're starting to go, okay, eliminate, eliminate, eliminate. Let me get down to the source. But if you never ask, you never know. If you never know, you can't get to where you actually want to go.
Yeah. You guys are the first ones that ever have aligned with my approach because I use marketing, you guys use sales, but it's like you're putting yourself out there for your ideal partner instead of like an ICA, right? And so you're putting out imagery that, yes, reflects who you authentically are. The AI photos taking over dating apps is mind blowing, as if that person is never going to see you in real life and realize you don't have six fingers. Just can't. But also when I will see men like nobody reads these profiles anyways. I'm like, no, you don't. You're just telling me you don't. And I worked hard on mine. Like I made sure that it very much attracted the right type of partner, but also repelled the wrong type of one. And so that's why I think that dating apps, again, I think they're used a lot more like social media where it's just attention and validation, attention and validation. And if you come from a place of low self-worth to begin with and you don't believe that you're worthy and deserving of like your ideal partner, that's going to reflect in what you post on there or how much effort you put into the experience of the app. So it's one thing to get your profile up, but also if you're not going to take initiative to like every message I send on an app, mainly I use Bumble right now, so I'm the one initiating the message. I go into their profile and I respond to something specific on the profile. And it blows my mind how few people actually respond. Yet the consensus I hear is like, no women responds on the apps and da da da. It's like, okay, well, how are you using it? Right.
Hmm.
Mm. And there's a few things there too with inactive users and people not deleting their profile or being cynical. And so that
Just me.
no, it's not just you. And I think that what people don't realize is there's just a lot, the cynicism adds to it as well, and you get a lot of inactive users. That's why I like Hinge, and people who are willing to share their last active, because it lets you, and you can sort by that, because then it shows you people who are recently active or check semi-frequently and things like that. I mean, think about the modern world. We're inundated with a idiotic number of notifications and apps and things like that. It's just one other thing to do. But if you're actively dating, and checking it semi-frequently, like Joel's story earlier, you want to give people grace, of course, to respond to you. That's why, like, the number one thing I think I have to hammer home with guys when it comes to apps is not being presumptuous. Because then if you're presumptuous, you're reactive. And if you don't follow up after a week, after 2 weeks, give them 3 weeks and two follow-ups and then cut them off. It's like people are like, oh, that's disrespectful to me. It's like, well, you still know what someone's going through. Their dad might be on the hospital bed, and not able to move any of his limbs. You just don't know. And good people are out there, and things happen, and they get inundated. So you serve zero people, including yourself, by assuming anything. Giving the people the benefit of the doubt is probably one of the most powerful things. And actually, I have a question for you about Bumble, if it's all right. We throw some questions your way. Um, but there's something else that you had said that triggered just like a really powerful thought. I have this, and what Joel said too. I have this quote in the book that, like an elimination diet, the process of elimination is almost more powerful than the solution or finding the right person. And I think that's when it comes to what you're talking about, what Joel's talking about, what I'm talking about, that's the underlying theme that helps someone become superhero, super in general in the dating world, in super powerful, is by realizing that that's how you get what you want. It's not a fear of rejection. It's not wanting to go out on dates, or just picking the safe thing. It's actually, um, yeah, that kind of perseverance. But my question for you on um, Bumble versus Hinge is, uh, why, as a woman, why do you choose to use that app?
So I deleted the app 2 months ago. I was traveling, so Bumble, I know I couldn't move my location, so I thought, I was traveling Montana. I'm like, maybe there's some cowboy out there, and that's my opportunity. So that's why I specifically downloaded Bumble. Bumble definitely gets a lot more volume as far as likes, and it's also cheaper to pay for it to see the likes as opposed to Hinge, where that's more expensive, and Hinge has less matches. I haven't found too much of a difference between the quality of matches. I do think Bumble has less quality matches for at least the type of guy I'm looking for. Um, I'm not completely sold on what was that look for? Joel just raised his eyebrows. "Where?" Um,
Yeah, he knows where I'm gonna go with this, I think.
okay, you're baiting me right in.
Well, I really wanna know. I'm
Yeah,
very
I don't think the qual as far as because I need somebody who's self-aware, who's done the work, who fills out their profile at a minimum, who can carry a conversation, which seems like a low bar. Um, yeah, it's been a while since I've had a match on Hinge that was any of those things, a couple on Bumble, but I'll be honest, like, me being able to get to the point of a first date has been slim to none in the last 12 months. Uh, I don't know why, because it's not that I'm not putting in the effort, it's not that I'm engaging in conversations, it's not that I'm like, "Here's my phone number, let's get off the app." So, like
It's really interesting because, and I'm very opinionated, and I am always willing to learn and be wrong. I'm curious what Joel thinks. With my experience as a man and talking with a lot of men and women, even though I don't really work with women often, I do try to always, spend time one-on-one and ask them about their experience, and so that I can stay educated on the other side of the coin. I don't like Bumble because although the profile is comprehensive, which I believe Hinge has an equally comprehensive profile, and a lot of men and women have profiles on both, so it's like sometimes it's redundant. The woman having to reach out first, I have an issue with depending on what kind of man you're looking for, because I think you're automatically filtering out men who are going to have some cojones, some courage, some relationship experience, willing to initiate. And again, people, whatever preferences people have, that's fine. But I think when we go too far one direction, away from roles, and not that roles need to be super concrete, but like ambiguity with roles or expectations seems to lead to a lot of pain. Like the women that I hear complaining the most are going to find a real man in places where real men don't exist. I'm not saying Bumble is exactly that, but it reminds me of like of that and a fraction of its existence. Um, And it's interesting what you said about Hinge because I typically hear, and maybe it's location dependent. I typically hear that women and men have more success on Hinge than Bumble. But yeah, in general, I think m- men that are only on Hinge and not Bumble tend to be less meek. But sometimes people just want to cast a wide net and use both. It might not be related to that. That's just a trend that I've observed.
And you're kind of validating what my experience was. I'm like, I should just delete Bumble altogether.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's a lot, but it's just kind of like the same people or just not quality. So yeah, you have quantity, and that's where I think a lot of men kind of project some insecurities. Is they're like, oh, women can get hundreds of matches a day. Like you have so many options. I'm like, yeah, there's hundreds of men that would do something to me and not get to know me. Sure, swipe right on her. But men who are actually looking to get to know someone and have interest in pursuing the same things I want to pursue.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna deliver 1,000,000 pounds of garbage, but I'm looking for a diamond ring." It's like, "Okay, good luck."
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a full time job, really. Um, okay, so let's talk about wife or bust. Tell me, what is wife or bust?
Oh, you go, lead in.
No, no, that's all usual.
No, you're not gonna do the lead in. All right.
Oh, you mean like, "Welcome back." That's right. Intro. No, you gotta do this.
As yeah. So wife or bust was built off the idea of um uh being able to date with authenticity, with integrity, um, coming from a very healed space and all the work that I put in terms of my business and mindset and like this is my profession. It really was a great tee up of now partnering with someone who has focused on dating and being able to come in and expose myself to the world and being able to go, okay, hey, here's the man that I am. Here's exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm willing to tell all as I walk through this process. Not because I want this to be a dramatic show or have people like, "Oh my gosh, next episode of Wife or Bust is on," even though people are like that, right? Is that I wanna be able to show, "Man, this is really exciting. Man, this really sucks. Man, this is really challenging. I feel really insecure here. I have a lot of doubt. There's nobody I'm talking to. There's a bunch of people that all of a sudden I'm talking to. It feels really overwhelming." Like, be able to be transparent that as a healed man and a healing man, um, it's still a challenge. And to be able to let people know, like, you're not alone out there. It is a challenge, whether on the apps or in real life. Dating can have its challenges, yet we don't have to do it alone. And encouraging people to be able to come together and express and share their experiences helps people to be able to go, "Oh, you too? Oh, man. Wait a second. I thought I was the messed up one, but Joel, you're saying that you run this business about mindset and all this, and you feel the same way? Yeah. Like I'm human just like you."
Yeah.
And so it's really been a really cool experience. And the idea is exactly what Chris said on episode one. He said, wife or bust. And we were like, well, that's what it's called. And then immediately after that, I went on to the interwebs, got to the domain, thought for sure it was going to be some porn site, for sure. Was not a porn site, instantly bought it. And the really the hope is that, I do eventually find a wife and that we can bring others on and be able to go, hey, here's guidance. You're gonna have professionals guiding you. And then to be able to create a community for people to be able to come to with Chris and be able to go, oh man, I need help. I know that I want this. I just don't know exactly how to. And Chris has been a huge, huge part of that, of even just helping me create direction of where to put this energy. And I've gotten uh, messages after messages from people of like, I finally got the courage to get on the app, or hey, I found my girlfriend now. I'm dating again. My relationship, actually, in my marriage has improved because some of the things you guys have talked about on Wife or Bus, I've actually brought it into my relationship. And so that's really the heartbeat of it all is, hey, can can we all have better relationships? Whether it's with our friends, our family members, our loved ones, our future wife. Uh, or our current wives.
Yeah. I admire your vulnerability in that because I have a friend who's also a dating coach, but for women. He's like, you need to share more of the stories that are going on. I shared a story about a plane. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I made out with a guy on a
Saw a piece of it, yeah.
God. If I swear to God, if that's my first million view video, it's 970,000 views at this point. But it's that real authentic, like, oh, this was a cool, like impromptu. I checked in with myself and then got ghosted the next day and how I processed the ghosting. Now, in real time, that happened months ago. So I posted it months after the fact because I was really resistant to posting it. Performed very well, got lots of followers, lots of views. This last weekend, I got stood up and then ghosted by a man who's 12 years younger than me. That's a great story. Like that hook alone, cool. And how I processed the uncertainty in sitting in that for the 2 days that it was going on. And even my own processing that and sharing how nervous system regulation, how I don't make it mean anything about me, how I don't generalize like men are just this or dating is this. And that I just say it's just one person who very clearly moved himself out of the way so that I don't have to spend the next several months pining over this person who doesn't have the character and integrity to say thanks but no thanks. And so it's inspiring to me, Joel, that you are documenting this because I definitely resonate with that. I guess my follow-up question is, and where my concern comes from, if I start documenting my journey and how I process it, that it's a way that other people can learn from, is what is that gonna look like for the partner or me going out into the dating world? Because 'Cause I've been very hesitant to even share my social media because it's my business, but as a men's coach, you can imagine that, like, a lot of men would be like, "Mm, is this authentic or is this just for content?" Or how have you approached that conversation that you're sharing all of this in real time vulnerably with people who may not want to have their stuff aired out publicly?
Yeah, yeah, that's something that uh, we talked about from the very beginning, and so names are never used. If
Yep.
they are names, they're false names. And a lot of the times, if I am on these dates, or particularly a second date, I'll let them know. Majority of the time, women are really good investigators. So
The
each
start
time, yeah, each time that I get their number, I say, "Hey, it's Joel Cochran." So I give my full name to them so that they can do their search. And as soon as you start putting Joel Cochran into the interwebs, things are going to start popping up. And it could definitely be wife or bust. And so I've had multiple women who go, "Hey, I watched the first episode of Wife or Bust before we even go on a date." And they're like, "I don't want to watch anymore because I want to get to know who you are." But they get the concept and they get the idea of it. And, radical transparency is something that I press with any relationship, which is being able to go, if I'm radically transparent with you, then I equip you with the power of being able to choose. And so if you don't want to proceed with this, totally fine. I respect that and I honor that. And if not, like, this is the journey that I'm taking to be able to help the greater community of people who are out there dating. And if this isn't something that you want to be shared, then hey, you either can tell me I don't want to share that, then I won't.
Yeah.
Um, or hey, no, it's totally fine. And I've had some people that have followed up and like, oh yeah, I heard my episode, you know, and it wasn't, it wasn't at this point anything that we've necessarily ran into yet. I live my life by radical transparency, not only on podcasts, but in my relationships with my parents, with my friends, with Chris. And yeah, it's something that I let people know. Like, this is how I live my life. I'm going to express my emotions. I've worked very hard to get to radical transparency. This is not something that was natural to me at all. I've worked very hard and I've seen the fruits of the labor of when I'm radically transparent with you and I tell you exactly where I'm feeling, exactly where I'm at, we actually get closer because it gives you the ability to process. And if I'm with a partner or a friend who I trust, then I go, I'm going to give you this information because I trust you that you can process this and be able to move through it. And so, um, it that is definitely a piece and a part of me. Integrity is very high for me. That has been a challenge within this show. Yet overall, I believe the risk reward for people to be able to hear a true story and go, gosh, man, I resonate with that. Like I feel seen here. It so much better.
Filter of people who don't actually value the intention behind it and they just wanna, like, label it as something. So that's kind of a cool insight that you just gave me. It's like understanding your intention behind it and getting curious about that. uh, and then valuing that in you, not just being like accepting of it, but also recognizing that there's value to that. Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll start sharing more and maybe not. Chris, your take on it.
You know, I have, and I say this a lot when we're recording because I'm not trying to gas Joel up. I think it takes an incredible amount of courage to share these things. And at the same time, you do need to leave something that's sacred, especially for the wife and wife or bust. So, like, I imagine when this very eligible bachelor finds the right woman, we'll probably have a cutoff and we'll focus on someone else in the show because, how you meet and navigate the dating world is really important to share. But I do believe that there's a point where things are meant to be between two people. And if you don't make that sacred, I've seen relationships that are more public for business or for whatever reason, and behind closed doors, they tend not to go so well. And so I think it's really courageous for Joel to do this now, not to say like while he can, but while it makes sense. And he is really making a huge sacrifice to people. And I resonate with it, but differently because the book is mostly about my own stories. I do throw some other stories from other people, but it's taken me 3 years, 900 plus hours, and over $20,000 just to get a book out there, and books don't make much money today because I so passionately believe that by sharing true stories and back to the radical transparency piece that Joel was talking about, where I take a proper amount of ownership and the people out there know that these stories are about them, but I'm being tactful. I'm not sharing names and I'm taking enough, if not too much responsibility. That's the way to really inspire people. Because if it's over embellished, if it's not truthful, if you're painting yourself in a good light or in a worse light, it's not going to resonate. People have an extremely accurate radar for what's true, even if they can't explain it. And so by keeping something in its most pure form, I think it's also the most impactful. And the show, as well as the book, the big call to action is like, don't become cynical and like, don't be a victim. Use everything to your advantage because it's a long-term investment. We're filled in a world, whether it's dating or otherwise, where people are chasing instant gratification or recognition or things that are very short-lived. And I realized because of that, it's probably the hardest time in history to ask people to do the non-sexy thing, look at the long term. But whether it's in financial investments, whether it's personal development, whether it's diet and health, the long term always wins. And so I want to get people excited about that because it can be a really fun process. But in order to do that, it requires that people like Joel and I are willing to have a trade-off in terms of sharing things that maybe not everyone would be comfortable sharing and being very, very honest when we do share. And so I like that it's that baked in accountability personally. In fact, I coach guys that you should never ghost and you should always apologize and you should always have a close the loop conversation because in
Got
this
a
day and
person for
age,
you that I'll share.
you say what?
I got a 29-year-old I'll share that with.
Yeah, I mean, at first, when whether you're younger, or you don't have a lot of a relationship experience, I wouldn't expect people to think about it too much, and I don't blame them for that. But when you realize that, especially with women, sharing dating experiences does include photos, names, text messages, screenshot anything that happens in the dating interaction can and will get forwarded. And it's like a game of telephone. So it is going to get evolve into something maybe it wasn't originally further down the line. Even in a city like Austin, as over 1 million people, you'd be surprised what goes around. Like, what's that expression? Bad gas travels fast. And uh it's even more of a baked in accountability reason to always date with integrity and be proud of every interaction because you just never know who's going to hear about it. And I like that a lot. And then the byproduct is that man, I feel very good coming out of
What?
every dating experience. Oh yeah,
Yeah, you got
am I back?
stop.
Yeah, yeah, might be the internet thing.
Yeah, we can clip this part out. Where were we? Joel, do you remember where he's leaving off? Baked in accountability and operating from integrity.
Yeah, I think the natural byproduct of dating with integrity, intention, and knowing that anybody could find out about how you're conducting yourself. It's not to put people on edge, but it's so that when the dating experience ends, no matter how it ends, they're gonna be really proud of how they behaved, and that fuels back into this like cool, I'm going to do it better. It's like a 1% better. It's a gratification thing. And I'm just really adamant about that. So yeah, that's the point of the book and the show. And so dating with integrity and radical transparency is not only courage, but it's like a self-fueled machine to keep guys like pushing and pushing forward the wife and wife or bust.
Yeah, that's beautiful because guess what? The relationship is not the end goal, right? Like you date and then you get in the relationship, the radical transparency and the integrity is going to become that much more essential, especially as you go into marriage and relationships and having children and stressors of life and trying to build a life with someone. Dating is not where that ends. Yeah.
That's so true.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything else? Let's say there's men listening that say they're coming out of a divorce or out of serious relationships and they're trying to get back into the dating world. Hot take. What's one major tip each of you can give them to approach dating from a place of transparency and integrity?
You got one
No
hint?
tips. No tips.
I have a couple that are rolling through my head. I've got one. Yeah. If you just got out of a relationship, it's assess your wounds. Just like anything else. I talk about you've been in the arena, and good for you for being in the arena, whether it's a relationship, a marriage, work, or whatever the case is. I always encourage people to celebrate that you're in the arena because everybody else is on the outskirts, right? They're watching. And so everybody has something to say about your marriage, about your relationship, about what it should be. But you're the only one that was in there, blood, sweat, and tears working through that. So when you come out of the arena of marriage or relationship or whatever else, take a moment to assess your wounds and be able to go, man, where was I hurt the most in that battle? Where do I need to assess? This is where I would encourage being able to hire coaches like yourself or going to therapy. And it's much longer, guys, than you can imagine. The easy route is that, man, that was a big battle. And, I just want to, sit back, eat grapes, and just enjoy life. Meaning, oh, let me get right back into dating and be able, but you will 100% from my experience of coaching thousands of people, go right back into a loop until you figure out, oh, this isn't my blood, this is your blood because I've healed my wounds. But majority of the time, we're bleeding over each other, and we don't know whose blood is whose. We don't know whose wound is what. So you need to take a moment to be able to stop, compress, heal the wound, and it may take longer than you'd like. Yet it will give you the benefit that it will give you is 10x than rushing right back in and being able to go, okay, it was all her, it wasn't me. No, 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 sir. It was all you. You decided to get into that marriage. You said yes. You had those arguments. You felt those ways and didn't express it. Now, if you don't own that, then you can't accept it. If you can't accept it, you can't redirect it. And if you can't redirect it, then you are going to stay ignorant to what your part was in this entire relationship. And you will just take that and you will press it upon someone else.
Mm, beautiful, Joel. All right, Chris, same question.
What Joel said. Just kidding. There are two things. I think one is give zero fucks or give less fucks than you're giving. And then also, in the book, it's called Set Your Foundation, but I'll say that take inventory in your life. And those go hand in hand a little bit. I think that, like we talked about before with, gaslighting, narcissism, social media, instant gratification, it's very difficult to isolate what you actually want. And even when you take the time to remove all the filters, there's still going to be things subconsciously that you don't really know what you want. And even the three of us being deep into this, there are things we still have yet to learn as we progress and work with people. And so I think it's set to kind of realize like that's how it is and it's totally okay. But don't let that freeze you into inaction. Let it drive you to want to discover more about what you want through experiences. And before you even get to that, and I don't think like people need to take a certain break out of a relationship or whatever for a certain amount of time, but setting your foundation from a man's perspective means, do you like the bare bones of the house before you invite the woman into it? Because a woman makes a house a home. So do you like where the front door is? Is there enough room for your workshop in the garage? Do you have like a backyard for the kids you want to have one day? Like obviously all metaphorically. I mean, maybe literally build a yard. Um, but it's like really stopping to be like, what do I want? And am I on my way towards that? Because a lot of guys will be like, well, I'm not there yet, so I can't date. Or I'm burned from this last relationship, so I need to clean up this rubble of this debris of the home that I was building. It's like, no, you still have the foundation, but maybe you need to repair it a little bit. Maybe you need to add a window here. And the other analogy that goes into is legs of the stool, which is I think all men need four categories of life that they're sinking their soul into before you even bring a woman into it. And again, you don't need to have all these things figured out. You don't need to be a master in all of these sections and in building this house. You just need to be on the way to it. And then you're going to actually be able to land and secure the right kind of woman. Because if you're building somebody else's house or you're looking at someone else's blueprint and you don't have four sections of your life to sit on that stool, if you only have one leg or if you have seven, it's not stable enough. And this gets there's a lot of nuance in it because then the devil's advocate or the contrarian is like, well, when do you know that you're there? I don't know. I don't know that anybody knows. But I think if you're putting effort into establishing what you want and you're on your way to building a solid foundation of that, then that's a good time to start dating. So don't be afraid to ask yourself, is it too soon or is it too early? And figure out the answer to that question on your own because there's no magical way to know. Um, and I guess it kind of goes back to what Joel said. The analogy of like, get back up on the horse is like, yeah, you don't want to wait too long because that's where people get cynical and jaded and assume the worst of people. But if you get right back up on the horse right away, you may not realize that you're injured, and that injury could lead to falling off again or more fatal injury. So, yeah, I guess that'd be my piece of advice. Like, take stock, but also take action.
Yeah. I usually recommend, I mean, because I get asked this question a lot because I work with men going through divorce. So like, when can I date again? Well, first clean up the divorce, like make sure that's done and in the history books. But also when you're ready to pour into somebody else and not going into dating and relationships of what can I get out of it? Right, because most men are going of like, "I'm lonely, I need a partner, I miss having a warm body, I miss having somebody to do things with." It's like, instead of looking at it, what can I get out of it? How can I pour into somebody else and support them to make their life amazing and great? And that's a great way to approach dating because then again, you're not getting butthurt when things don't go your way of like, "Oh, they're not my person that I get to pour into," because the person that I pour into is gonna be a lucky person.
I love that. I love that a lot. I agree with that. And also, there's nothing wrong with cold bodies. So,
Yeah.
Oh, God, you had to.
Way to wrap it up on a high note, Chris. All right, guys, tell us where we can find more about you, the show, the book. Lay it on me. Where is everything?
Joel and I are just both so courteous and gentlemanly to each other.
Where did you go?
Um, so my book is The Dating Edge. I'm not sure when this comes out, but it might be on Amazon by that time, whether it's hardcover, paperback, audiobook, ebook, all forms will be on Amazon. Um, on YouTube, if you search Base States or Wife or Bust, you'll find all of the episodes from Wife or Bust. And there is so much value. Like Joel said, it doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or you're back new into the dating world, or maybe you're leaving a relationship. It's just so much more than dating. And that's what I've realized about the book too. It's really like life lessons. And Joel does such a great job being the guinea pig, the sacrificial lamb to everybody else's personal development. Um, and yeah, I'm on socials as Base States.
Beautiful Joel, where can we find you? Same place?
I mean, same place. Wife or bust. I'm also going to toss this out here for Chris, as Chris does have a men's group that if you really want to check out, I would highly suggest it. We know that we've gotten a couple people from the show to be able to go there, and they've getting a safe place to land is essential when you're in this dating world. And men tend to do the whole lone wolf thing and isolate themselves. Guys, you don't have to do that. Um, Chris has helped me tremendously. And again, I come with a wealth of knowledge. And for another man to be able to really expand my knowledge is something that doesn't happen often. And this guy really knows what he's doing. And so if you're really looking for love and truly are ready to date with integrity, not only get the book, but also really take a look into joining his group.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, we will link all of that up in the show notes. Guys, thank you so much. I know this is a couple months of planning and prepping for this. It has been an honor. And this is probably not the first time I'm going to have you on the episode. So thanks so much for coming on. Until next time, have a good one. Hey there, before we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to extend a personal invitation to anyone ready to take their healing journey to the next level. Whether you're looking to break through limiting beliefs, heal from past pain, navigate a current situationship, relationship, and or marriage, or create a life that's fully aligned with your truest, most authentic self, I do offer limited spots for one-on-one coaching and somatic release breathwork sessions, customized and tailored specifically for you and what you're trying to overcome. In our coaching sessions, we'll dig deep, ask the hard questions, probably better questions than you're asking yourself, and work through those blocks and those beliefs that are holding you back from living the life you deserve. And even if you struggle to believe you deserve it, I got you. And if you're ready to tap into the power of your breath, my somatic release breathwork sessions, when they're one-on-one, are highly customized and specific to you and what you're looking to get clarity on and overcome, and to reconnect with your own body and inner wisdom. This is your time to invest in you, to create lasting change and to reclaim your power. If this resonates with you, head on over to unblockyourbs.com to learn more and schedule your session. Let's work together to unblock and unlock your true potential. Till next time, remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. You got this. Have a good one.